Hey, Westside, want to give you an update and then introduce our speaker for the day. The update is way to go on your generosity. We are doing great with All In. So thankful for that. You know, faithfulness is about continuing to do the right thing, even though you haven't necessarily seen results. We've seen some results so far, and other results we're still waiting on. We've already started the church in South Africa. That's a great result. We've already got the audio and video improved at Speedway. That's awesome. But at Lenexa, we're still waiting to break ground. That should happen in the next couple of months. Thanks for your giving. Thanks for your faithfulness. Thanks for your generosity. And speaking of faithfulness, we've had a pastor here for almost 5 years now that's done a great job every time he speaks. How about a hand for our friend and one of our pastors, Brian Phipps?
Man, it's an honor to be with you this morning. It's been powerful. I trust that God's Spirit continues to lead us in that way. In honor of Father's Day, I want to offer a father-sized confession. Been hanging around here for 5 years. I think I'm ready for this. Will you hold on to that for a minute? Don't let it go too far. I'm going to need that in a minute. Father-sized confession. I trust you with this. Just want to let you know how much I really love Downton Abbey. It's one of the best shows to ever hit the TV screen. I mean, it's got the I know I'm secure in my manhood. I'm all right with that. That's probably Troy Kennedy back there doing that kind of stuff. So I love Downton Abbey, and have you ever seen these things coming across Facebook about which character are you and all these different shows, like which Hobbit are you and which Big Bang Theory are you and all this? It's like we were having this identity crisis. We don't know who we are unless we relate to somebody there. But somebody asked me about that on the Downton Abbey cast. So I'm thinking through, am I like Lord Grantham? You know, the owner of the gig, the guy in charge, and he's sophisticated and regal, so no, that's not me. That's out. How about Matthew, the guy, his son-in-law, real good-looking guy, check there, and just kidding. And also very regal, sophisticated, and tender and compassionate, and I'm really not all that, so that's not me. So I'm thinking, how about the other guy, Tom, the Irish guy that was one of the servants that got brought up into the big family? He's got an edge. That's kind of like me. He's not quite comfortable in his own skin in either place. No, that's not me. And I'm thinking, man, can we do Wayne's World instead? Wayne's World, party time, excellent. That's more like me. Anyway, so as I'm going through that whole quiz and that exercise, I'm thinking, what if we did this with the Bible miniseries? Remember the one that came on here recently that just runs all the way from Abraham all the way through the New Testament? If somebody were to say, that's the TV series we're talking about, which person do you relate to the most? I wonder how many of us would raise our hand really quickly and say, Jesus is the one that I'm most like. Same as last service, nobody. And yet here's an interesting thing. Jesus is the only person in the history of the world that God says you can be exactly like. There's a thought. We spend our whole life trying to be people, models and all. When I was in college, I'll admit, I wanted to be John Bon Jovi. I grew my hair out. I wanted to sing in a rock and roll band, and I didn't have the talent, so that didn't work out. When I got to seminary and I was starting to be trained to teach and to preach, there was a guy named R.C. Sproul that I just loved, and I tried to talk like him and think like him and all this, and that didn't fit on me. It was just ugly. Shoot, after last week, all I want to be is Rob Wagner. Keep in step, whatever that was, Love you, Rob, wherever you are, bro. Boy, are we blessed to have him around here, or what? Thank you, Lord, for that new friend and leader in our life. But here's the deal. There is no one in the world that you can be like other than Jesus, and in fact, it's God's plan for you to become like him. Grab your notes, wave them at me, then look at the very top there. It says this: God knew you in advance, and he chose you to become like his son Jesus. Period. You can't be anybody else. But God's promise, your birthright as a follower of Jesus, is to be just like him. Now, does this mean that you're going to be some stuffy, button-down, tie-collared, neutered, bland person that's preparing to strum a cloud for the rest of eternity in heaven, or strum a harp on a cloud or something up there? No, it's not. It's becoming like Jesus is actually taking every beautiful individual facet God has ever created you with, but turning you on the inside out into as beautiful person on the inside as you are on the out. Let's read again from Galatians 2, the fruit of the Spirit. This is what Jesus wants to do in us. Let's read it together. The fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. And against such things there is no law. Now, when you're reading through a couple of those, if you're like me at all, you're going, that one's okay, ow. That one's okay, ow. And you see that there's room for growth. I'm assuming that's where we all are, yeah? Right. All right, last week, Rob showed us the picture of all the fruit together. And what he told us was, not only does God want that to happen to us, it's going to happen in a bunch. Check this line out. Put this in the blank. This is the big idea for the series. Jesus wants to produce his character in you. He wants to produce that character in you. He's not up there waiting to smack you down for the things that you're not yet. He's waiting to build you up in the things of all of those fruit, so that you become more and more and more like him. Now, it's important to realize, like we talked about last week, that this doesn't come by striving. It comes by yielding. Brandon, can you throw me that ball back up here? Brandon, what's that? I've already lost my man card. Are you sure you can catch it? Thank you, Brandon. Rob did a great job last week. He said, typically when we look at that stinger part of that list, we go, okay, I'm going to double up, and I'm going to strive, and I'm going to work hard, and I'm going to be more patient, and I'm going to have more peace if it kills me. And you just work, and as soon as you release, it snaps back. We squeeze down on it, and then it snaps back. If you don't get that, you're not going to make it. If you get this, you'll do it. You'll be fine. But the longer we squeeze and snap back, it's just not going to work. Throw that out. How do we do it? We yield. And the words that we used last week on yielding were remaining in Jesus and then responding to his leadership. Remaining in him, staying close with him, however you do that, journaling, praying, meditating, being a part of a small group, coming on a weekend service. It's not all just to check off a box. It's all so that we can live close to Jesus, so that we can hear him call the plays in our life and bring us his peace. Well, that's where we're going today. So how do we have peace? How does that fruit grow in our lives? Now, I've been asking all week long, what is peace? I've been asking people online, been asking people I've run into during the week, and I've looked online, all these search engines define peace and all this. And it's interesting, almost everyone that I've spoken to defines peace by what it's not. Peace is the absence of war. War and peace. Peace is the absence of chaos. Peace is the absence of conflict. I get all that. That makes sense to me. That resonates. But you're telling me what it is by what it's not. So what is peace? A lot of writers, Christian writers throughout the history of the world, have kind of summed up the thought that's next in your outline there. If you'll write this in. Peace, if you think about it, really is when things are as they should be. Well, conflict, it shouldn't be. But so if it's not there, you have peace. War shouldn't be. If it's not there, we have peace. It's as they should be. When people are as they should be, when circumstances are as they should be, then I'll experience what? Peace. But there's a small problem, isn't there? People are rarely the way they should be. And if I get to call the shots on what people should be like, they probably won't like my idea for them. Circumstances aren't always what they should be. Finances are never where we want them. The job place is never the way we want it. The ball team's not always scoring the way we want them. And the more we try to control those circumstances so that we'll have peace, the more we tend to mess it up. You follow me? Because if you've got one person over here who thinks it should be this way, and one person over here, and everybody's trying to control the situation, everything gets messed up. And we ask ourselves the really important question, is peace even available? Can we grab that at all? And then Jesus comes in with this statement that rocks the whole system. Listen to what he says. Peace I leave you. My peace I give unto you. What he's saying is, guys, in spite of the circumstances and in spite of the people, things are as they should be here. And I am able and I am wanting to give that peace to you. Here's the big idea of today. Jesus will produce peace in my life as I yield to him. Now, let's put some words to that idea of yielding. What is it there? Release control. My choices in any circumstance are to take control and do as I want and produce my own fruit. I've seen what that stuff looks like. Not pretty. Or I can yield to the leadership of the umpire, Jesus, and let him produce peace in my life. Two facets of this we're going to look at today. The first one is this, if you'll write it in the blank. Jesus produces peace in me as I yield to his truth. He'll produce peace in me as I yield to his truth. Phipps, what does that mean? Here's the short and skinny. Jesus will never lie to you, period. He will never misdirect you. He will guide you. He'll speak into your life. If you ask him, if you abide with him, he will. And it will always be right. He'll never lead you the wrong way. Now, it won't always feel like that, will it? Forgive my neighbor? That can't be right. Imagine Peter in the boat that day. Peter, go on and get out of the boat and walk on the water. Well, everything tells me that's stupid. Right? Sometimes the things Jesus asked us to do are like that. But listen, he will never, ever lie to you. And every time you yield to his truth, let his truth rule whatever you think. You'll experience peace. That's what he says. Starts out very encouraging like too. Let's look at this next verse in Colossians 1. God was pleased to have all of his fullness dwell in him. That's Jesus. And through him to reconcile to himself all things, including me. All right? Making what through his blood? Making peace through his blood shed on the cross. One of the questions that haunted me forever was, am I okay with God? I mean, because he's big. And I don't know about you, but I brought a bunch of junk in my closet to the table with this relationship with God. Skeletons, junk, stuff I'm ashamed of. I hate it. And I know what the preachers say, and I know what the books say and all this, but am I okay with God? Well, what he wants to do with this truth is take every lie that's in my brain that says I'm not okay, I was too bad, I outdid it, there's no way God could love me enough to forgive me for what I've done, and he's taken this truth and eradicating that lie, saying peace is done. Jesus on the cross said to Telestai, it is finished. Put it to rest. Amen. Man, isn't that beautiful? Now my lie, the lie that's going on in my head is saying, Phipps, you won't make it. You're not good enough. But the truth is telling me Jesus is, and he's already done what needs to be done for you to have peace. Put it to rest. So encouraging. Take that lie that's destructive and chaos and conflict, put the truth in there in order to win. I remember early on in my Bible study time, some people think that Bible reading and journaling is a chore. To me, it's a treasure hunt. I need more tools to knock out the lies that are messing with my head. And I find them when I do that. And I remember kind of hearing some tapes playing in my head when I was young in the faith. Brian, you'll never amount to much. You never do it right the way it should be done. I mean, all these things, you don't have what it takes to be a good man. And then I read Philippians 4:13, and it says something like, I can do all things through Christ who empowers me. Here's the lie, you'll never amount to much. Here's the truth, you're my masterpiece, and with Christ you can do all things. Do you see how this works? It's beautiful. The truth of Jesus, if we yield to it, takes that chaos in our life, throws it down, and replaces it with a measure of peace. As we talked about a minute ago, however, the more you continue to walk with Jesus, the more challenging some of that truth can become. I mean, there's things that I used to believe that they just aren't part of what's true, and it was hard to take. That's when God started really coming in and pruning off some of the brokenness in my life. One was, I used to think, man, I could never forgive this person for what they've done. I somehow believed that if I forgave them, I gave power back to them and all this other stuff. And I said, I'm not going to do it until someone looked at me and told me, Phipps, this is what forgiveness is. This is why Jesus commands it. And that was difficult at first because I didn't want to forgive. But as the lie got replaced with the truth, what was once chaos in the background of my soul was then put to rest over time as his peace ruled. Purity issues. Is sex okay outside of marriage? Everybody around me tells me that it's okay. I'm thinking that it's okay. I actually got a special pass from God, is what one of my friends said growing up. I went, really? Where'd you get that? You know? And it's hard when culture says all this and your friends have these kind of expectations and you've got a lie and you've got the truth. Which one do you want? Well, as long as I go with the lie, I'll continue to have chaos. But as I surrender to his truth, I'll begin to have peace. Listen, let me show you from the book of Romans how critical this transaction of the lie to the truth is. It's the next verse in Romans 8. It says, those who live according to the sinful nature, basically what that means, that's the raw material that we're born with, that is all about me, that wants everything to work for me. They have their minds set on what that nature desires. So think of your brain as focused on making ends meet for you. By the way, Sigmund Freud knew this in spades. Read him. He got it. All right? Every psychologist, Christian, secular, from then gets this idea. It's so true. Our minds are set on what the nature desires. But those who live in accordance with the Spirit, in other words, those that are remaining in Jesus, have their minds set on what the Spirit desires, trading the lie for the truth. The mind of sinful man is what? Death, chaos, conflict, all those other things. But the mind controlled by the Spirit is what? It's life and it is peace. It's like Paul can't even get to the end of the book without saying this again in a different way. And in Romans chapter 12, you see it right there. Don't conform to the pattern of this world anymore, but be transformed by what? The renewing of your mind. The renewing of your mind. Do you see the blanks there on the page? I heard a big sigh right then. Oh boy, here's the homework. Yes, it's so true. Keep this in front of you, friends, all week long. Allow this to be an exercise that you engage in regularly. What is the lie that I'm listening to that's keeping my life in chaos? Is it I can't forgive? If it is, what's the truth that Jesus wants to tell you? If you don't know what the truth is, go ask your small group leader. Go ask a mentor. Call in and talk to one of the folks here. Find a mentor. Find somebody that's ahead of you for that truth. You want peace. Jesus is saying, if you yield to my truth and let my truth replace the lie that's driving you, you'll have it. Does that make sense? Little bit at a time. He changes this so that we can move into changing this. And that's where we're going next. Here is point number 2. Jesus produces his peace in me as I yield to his rule. Jesus produces peace in me as I yield to his rule. How is this different than point number 1? I'm going to read through the verse here in just a second, and as we're going through it, see if you can find the secret that makes this one just a little bit different. Here's the verse. Let the peace of Christ rule in your hearts. Now, first, do you notice where we've moved from? We've moved from here to here. Now, that word rule, just really quickly, means umpire. Think baseball game. Think 2 umpires that are there calling the plays all the way through the game. It's live. It's action. If somebody hits a foul ball, he determines it. They determine whether someone was caught stealing or they made it all the way to the base. It's an active engagement of Jesus' rule coming in and changing how I'm going to go ahead and spill the word here, love. I'll come back to it. But here's the secret. Since as members of one body, you are called to peace. The secret word here, friends, is body. Listen, he's not as interested in your individual peace as he is interested in the people around you being at peace together. The family that you have, the people that you work with, the people that are in your small group, the people that are on your soccer team, all the parents, not just a few. You know what I'm saying? All the people that God has put in your orbit is the body. When the Bible talks about body, it's always talking community. That's how they understood it. Everything was community. I never was meant to be all by myself. And what Jesus is saying here is let the peace of Christ rule in your body, not your individual body, but your body of people, because if I can rule there, you win. You follow me? Doesn't that stink? I mean, wouldn't it be better if he just said, let me just take you one-on-one and do it? Well, here's the blank. Write this in. Big characters primarily produced where? In relationships. Why is that so big? Because I am easily at peace. I am easily kind. I am easily gentle when I'm the only one home. I'm picturing myself in my skivvies on my very comfortable lazy. That was an awful picture, so let's move right past that. But you get the idea. I've got my big iced tea. I've got the remote. I'm sitting in the lazy boy. The TV's on. I'm easily doing what I need to do. But then that dreaded noise takes place. The rising of the garage door. Yes, this peace has now been broken. And then the kids come in, and they throw their book bags down on the floor where you're watching television. And then they start yelling back and forth, and you're thinking, doesn't everybody know that this is my house, and that is my television? And, you go on, and the peace has been broken, and all of a sudden the challenge is there. Does anybody else need an umpire at that moment? Maybe not with the family, but how about when you have that family reunion and that person that rubs you raw shows up? Or you're faced with that person that's really, really hurt you and you don't know how to act. Who needs the umpire? I do. And here's our choice. When the umpire makes the call, we have a choice to either yield to his rule or keep things going in our own way. And if we go our own way, who's staying in control? Us. And how does that normally work out? It doesn't. But we also have the choice to let the one who is the God of peace rule in that situation. Listen to the umpire, listen to the call he's playing, and actually follow him up on that thing. And when we do heed and yield to that leadership, he wins, not just in that moment, but he continues to change us from the inside out as we continue to live. Let me give you an example. When my son, my middle kid, oldest son was 7, we were having a little conflict in his bedroom. I remember it like it was yesterday. Now, when it comes to my family, my wife is really, 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 really sweet, and I'm not much like that. I'm usually the one that's bringing, the volume and bringing the strength and whatnot. And so that was my default, and I felt that as my responsibility. I know that kids get strength from strength, and so I wanted to be that for my kid. It worked with my oldest, worked with my youngest, did not work with Sam, period. Sam's a different kid. And so one time we're having this escalating moment between the two of us in his bedroom, and I'm thinking, I need to keep strong. And I watched him, and I thought he was possessed by a demon. His eyes just got farther and farther and farther in the back of his head, and he was going down. And I was ready to take that last notch of authority when the umpire stepped in and said, Brian, I need you to love him differently than you've loved the rest. Well, God, I'm not a very good, loving person here. Can you give me a clue as to how to do this? And he said, Sam needs you to partner with him in what you're trying to accomplish. Don't crush his will. And I remember just saying, okay, well, umpire, you got to keep calling the play. We sit down on the bed. I put my arm around him. I said, Sam, I need to partner with you. Here's what we're looking for. We're looking for you to trust and me to trust and build this relationship and honor God together and all this. And you know what? I have a partner. My son and I have been at peace since the time he was 7. And I'm thinking how critical of a job it was for the umpire to play his part during that time, to rule in my family so he can rule in our hearts. And as one body, God made Phipps a little bit more like Jesus. I am so grateful for the relationship with my son. And it's made me more patient. It's really cool. Rob was talking last week about all these things, and I was sitting with my wife and my youngest out in the gallery engaging in the worship service, and my wife looks over and says, "You're getting better." She's probably thinking, you still have a really, really long way to go, but you're getting better. That's Jesus. That's the umpire having his way. Listen, here's the deal. Love this next verse in Hebrews. No discipline seems pleasant at the time, but painful. But later on, however, it does what? It produces a harvest of righteousness and peace for those that have been trained by it. Here's an encouragement for you. Don't wait till you're in the crisis situation to need the umpire to teach you how to love in that situation. Get some practice. And you can practice in a small group. I can't imagine where my life would be, where that moment with Sam would be, if I didn't have a whole lifetime of being in a small group. Because in a small group, we're all about the same goal, and that goal is yielding to Jesus' truth. I'm learning more and more and more about his truth and learning to yield to it. In fact, there's conflict in every small group, but it's not nearly as intense as some of that other raw stuff I deal with on a daily basis. So why don't I practice how to love? By the way, if you go for love, you get it all, right? How do I practice that love in a less charged up setting so that when I engage in those more difficult situations, I've got some traction with that? If you have not been in a small group and experienced the benefit of a small group, listen, at Westside, we make this so easy. There's been several people here at Lenexa and up at Speedway, and there's groups online too, if that's where you are. They have chosen to step up and start a brand new group so that those of you that don't have the advantage of a body around you to yield to Christ's truth and yield to his rule, they're making it available. They're going to be in the lobby, the commons area here at Lenexa, up at Speedway, as I said, groups online. Get in a group. Here's my promise to you. It's only 6 weeks long. Anybody can endure people that long. And if you just can't stand them, bail on them after 6 weeks. Nobody will know the difference, right? Here's what happens every time somebody takes a step into one of these new groups. They get to the end of it and they go, I don't know how I didn't have this before. I encourage you, get into a group. You can't buy peace. You can't. You can try with a 401k. You can try with insurance. You know, we all know the secret. You can't buy it. But Jesus is saying, I've already paid for it. I give it to you. My peace I leave with you. Think the way I think. There's your last blank. I'll get that peace. I'll receive it as I let him transform my mind and let me think the way he thinks. And as I yield to his rule in my day-to-day relationships and love the way he loves. Because when I think the way he thinks and love the way he loves, things will be as they should be. You ready for some peace? Let's go get it. Let's pray. Jesus, thanks for your peace. Help us to walk in your peace today and forevermore. We love you. Amen. God bless you guys. We'll see you next time.